What's going on, y'all? We are going to learn about functions. This might be a new concept for you, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so a function is kind of like a machine. Um, it's going to input stuff, and then it's going to go through your function. It's going to do stuff to it, and then it's going to spit something out. So, for example, a function could be like, let's say I input the number 2, and then it goes through the function, and the output's, let's say, like 5. That could be a function. But what you don't want a function to do is, let's say I put in 2, but last time it gave me 5, right? Let's say this time it gave me 6. You do not want this. This is bad. So for a function, what you want is every time you put in an input, you want to get the same output every time. You don't want there to be 2 different ones. That is bad. So let's illustrate using some pictures. So this is exactly what I just said. An input must have exactly one output for something to be a function. So if you take a look at this graphic, this is going to be our input space. Sorry about that. This is going to be our input. So let's say for this, it's saying, okay, we're going to take 1, the number 1, and we're going to run it through the function, and it's going to turn into A. 2 is going to turn into C, and 3 is going to turn into B. So this is a function because if you put in an input, it's going to map it to exactly one output. Let's take a look at this other example. We have a table here. So this is going to be our input, and this is our output. So if you see here, if we input 1, our output's going to be 2. But if we input 2, our output could be 3, or our output could be 4. So if you notice, for the same input, we're getting 2 different outputs. And this is bad. So this is not a function. So I'm going to go over some examples, just real quick, to whether things are functions or not. All right, is this a function? So if you look at this first example, 1 maps to 4, 2 also maps to 4. This is actually okay. So 2 different inputs can map to the same output, but you don't want 2 outputs coming from 1 input. So this is actually good. Good. If we look at this graph here, usually on our x-axis, this is our input, and then our y-axis is our output. So if you look at, this is 1, this is going to be 2. If you look at 2, we have 2 different y's for 2. So this is bad. This is not a function. You might be, well, Mr. Lee, this is not what graphs look like. Well, let me show you an example of a graph. So if you have a graph like this where you have like a curve or like a line or something, we're going to do what's called the vertical line test. And this test just says if I draw any vertical line, I should never be able to pass through 2 points of the graph. So for example, on this first example, if I draw a vertical line through here, if you notice how it passes through 2 different spots on our graph, that means it's not a function. Not a function. Because it passes through 2 points. If you take a look at this one to the right, no matter what vertical line I draw, I'm only going to hit the graph 1 time, so this is a function. That's going to be it for the video. So have fun with the IXL.